Go.
Okay, so thank you for inviting me this morning. My name is Neil Martin. I'm one of the senior business coaches here at ActionCoach in Cheltenham. And this morning I wanted to talk about the point of power. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, what is the point of power? Don't worry, I'll get to that in a minute. But just before I get to that point, it's interesting, the feedback we've just had in terms of the question of, what's your biggest challenge right now, time, team, or money? And a lot of people saying time. And the one person that said focus, thank you for that. Here's the interesting thing. When it comes to time, you can never get more of it, but you can shift how you focus the use of the time. So to me, the word focus, I hear time anyway, because it's about how are you making best use of your time? How are you making sure that you're focused on the important things, not just the urgent things, the things that are really going to move the needle and shift things forward, which kind of ties into a little bit about what the next 10 minutes is going to be about. Because for me, I think there are two key aspects to building and growing a business that sit in tandem with each other, that sit in parallel with each other, okay? One is skill set. So as in the ability to do the job, the ability to deliver the promise that you're making to customers, whether that's a product or a service, you have to be able to deliver the result that someone's expecting, okay? And that's all about having the right skill set to do so. But when it comes to growing and scaling a business, the other really important thing is having the right mindset in place. And one of the things that happens for a lot of us is, we'll go out there, we'll become a specialist in something, we'll get really good at something, potentially as an employee for someone else. And then we go, I want to build a business around this of my own. But here's the question. How much education did you get in how to build a business? How much education did you get in terms of how to grow and scale a company, how to employ people, how to run a team, all of those other aspects, how to plan not just your own time, but other people's times, how to make sure that you've got the right cash flow and financial processes in place to actually support the ongoing growth and building of that business. So it's not just about the skill of how to do the job, it's also about how to build the business around it. And one thing that I will share on this just before I get into the specifics of the point of power is a little equation for you, which is be times do equals have. Now, the way I would suggest that you think about this equation is actually in reverse. So what do you want to have? What do you want your life to look like? What do you want in your personal life? What do you want your business to look like? If I said to you, what does your finished business look like, for example, what does that mean? And when I say finished business, a real business is one that can work without you. Now, you might choose to never exit the business because you might love what you do. But for it to be a finished business, it should be something you could sell to somebody else or put a management team in to run for you and step away should you wish to do so at some point in the future. So, in order to have that outcome, in order to have the things that you'd like to have in your personal life, what do you have to do? What are the actions you need to take? And also, what are the things you want to do? What are the things that you enjoy doing? What are the things that are fun for you versus the things that are necessities for you? But then the biggest thing of all for me is, who do you need to be? Who do you need to become? How do you need to show up? What kind of habits do you need to have? Excellence isn't about the thing we do once. Excellence is about the things we do habitually, the things we do over and over and over again. And that is how we really drive up quality in our own lives and in our businesses. If you want a better quality of life, start having better quality habits. So one more slide, and then I will get to the point of power. I just want to set the frame for this really, because I've mentioned it's about skill set and mindset. And when it comes to mindset, there are two mindsets that I just want to put on your radar, okay? One is a fixed mindset, the other is a growth mindset. And if you want to know more about this, there's a brilliant book by a woman called Carol Dweck. It's simply called Mindset, and I can't recommend that book enough. But put in really simple terms, a fixed mindset says things like, I know. A fixed mindset is closed to new ideas. And if you're close to new ideas and you're close to new approaches, how are you going to get new results? Marshall Goldsmith wrote a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Okay. I'll be honest, I've never read the book, but I love the title. Okay. Because it's so true, isn't it? The thing that gets us to a certain point works to a certain point. But what do we do to get beyond that? Which is where we need a growth mindset. We need to be open-minded to learning new things, taking new ideas on board, you know, being open to the fact that, well, maybe the approach we've had to a certain point was great, but the world's changed around us. You know, we've heard about rising costs and things in the preamble to this speech today. You know, as we went around the room, there was talk about rising costs. That's something we can't control. But what we can do is look at ways to how do we adapt in order to fit that changing environment to make sure that we not only survive, but also we can actually thrive and grow and build our businesses through it. So what is the point of power? It's that yellow dot. Now, I know that's a massive simplification. It's a yellow dot. But that yellow dot right there represents one simple word: choice. Now, I want to ask you a question. Do you ever wake up in the morning, the alarm goes off, and all you want to do is lean over and hit the snooze button? Have you ever had that experience, right? You know, or maybe it's Alexa that wakes you up and you're yelling to her, going, "Alexa, snooze." By the way, if anyone's got an Alexa that's listening, I apologize if it's now talking to you. But, you know, if you've ever had that kind of experience, let me ask you a question. Is your life or your business ever going to get better if you stay in bed? Or do you need to get up and do something about it? And the reason that they asked the question of, is it going to get better if you stay in bed? So I want to use a little acronym with you, which is BED, which stands for blame, excuses, and denial. Because if you're operating below the point of power, the first thing that most of us will do when we're below the point of power is we'll actually deny that there's a problem in the first place. We'll pretend everything is okay. We'll ignore it. And do you know what denial stands for as an acronym? Don't even notice I am lying. It's me kidding myself and not even admitting to myself that a problem exists. And in some cases, it's actually there's kind of what I'd call the unknown unknown. You know, I don't really know there's a problem yet because I haven't noticed it yet, because I'm not being detailed enough with my thinking. I'm not looking, you know, for example, maybe I'm not looking at my finances regularly enough, and I'm waiting for my accountant to give me a report at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year. And at that point, I'm going to go, oh, I thought I was doing better. Or am I proactively looking at where I am? And am I looking at plans and targets and budgets and going, how am I against those? Yeah, how am I really performing? Am I taking some kind of ownership? So the first thing's denial. Second thing's excuses. You know, it's coming up with reasons why something's not working. If someone once said to me many years ago, you have one of two things in this world. You either have evidence or excuses. As in, you can either prove that something is working, or you can give me a reason why it's not. And then the next stage up from there, because this is a bit of a hierarchy, you know, we start by denying there's even a problem. Then we look for excuses as to why that problem exists. And then on occasion, what we'll also do is blame things. And that might be us blaming other people, or it might be us blaming the economy. It might be us blaming the pandemic. There's a whole bunch of things where we can go, yeah, well, because of this. Because of this, there's a problem. Because of that, there's a problem. Because of this person. And all of that is operating below that point of power. Now, what happens when we go the other side of that point of power? And I'm going to give you another acronym. And for this, I want you to imagine that your business, no matter the size of it, is like you've got into your own little boat. Okay,
you've got 1.5 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. You get in your own little boat, and in that boat, you're in control. Now, how do you control a boat? You need to grab hold of those oars. And what does the oar stand for? Ownership, accountability, and responsibility. And interestingly, each one of those is the exact opposite of the point underneath. The opposite of being in denial is being responsible. The opposite of making excuses is holding yourself accountable. The opposite of blaming someone else is taking ownership yourself. And the point at which you gain control is when you move above that point. True control comes when you go, do you know what? I own this. Regardless of what's gone on around me, I can't control what happens outside of me or outside of my business. but I can control what I do next. I can always control how I respond. And so the word I'm really going to focus on there actually is responsible, because if you break that in half, what does it say? It says, I am response able. No matter what happens, I'm able to choose how I respond, able to choose what I do next. And so here's my big question. I know we've only got about less than a minute to go. So here's my big question for you. Watching a presentation like this, and I'll be honest, I've given versions of this that have gone on for literally hours where we've gone into a lot more detail. But watching a presentation like this, what do most people do afterwards? Nothing. They've made notes, but they don't do anything with it. Whereas my suggestion would be every time you go to any kind of training event, whether it's a 10-minute thing in a networking session, whether it's a full day out of your diary, make sure you take at least one thing and you implement it in some way. Because so many people say, one day I'll do this, one day I'll do this, one day I'll do this, one day I'll do that. Flip it around and make it day one. What can you do today? What's one area of your life that you know you've been putting it off and you've been denying that there's a problem? What's one area where you've been making an excuse where you could hold yourself to account? What's one area where you're blaming someone else where you could go, actually, what's my part in this? What's one thing that's not working where you could take responsibility and decide to do something to make it better? Basically, what's one place where you could take action? So that's me wrapped up. One thing I will say, I know that was very compressed. And so if anyone wants to dig a little bit deeper around time, team, money that we talked about before, or anything you've seen in this presentation, I'd like to gift you the opportunity to have a one-to-one session with me. There is a link there that I'll put in the chat as well. And if you want to book a 20-minute meeting with me, that will give you access to my diary to be able to do so. I hope you found that useful, and thank you for your time.